I'm Mark Dresner, and this is Forward Focus, a special interview series featuring experts and leaders at the forefront of innovation. Forward Focus is brought to you by FEI, the annual Front End of Innovation Conference, now entering its 15th year as the world leader in advancing innovation. Joining me today is Brian Singer. He's the design manager for brand creative at Pinterest. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and responsibilities? What are you doing at Pinterest?
Well, my role's changed quite dramatically over time. I've been there for about 2 years, and it changes about every 6 months with the needs of the company. Right now, I'm focused primarily on shifting perception, and what that means is we discover in certain countries, for example, the United Kingdom, that people think we're a social network, or people think we're a photo sharing site. And we know that if you think we're a photo sharing site and you sign up for us, you're disappointed. Or if you think we're a social network, you don't sign up for us because you've got several other social networks. So right now I'm working on our first ever campaign that's going to launch in the UK this month. And it's really aimed at communicating to people what our value is, why we matter in their lives, and what we are. We're really the world's catalog of ideas, and we're really useful for everyday ideas. What do you want to wear today? What do you want to cook tonight? Things like that.
So Pinterest is one of these companies that sort of just oozes creativity, right? How does Pinterest maintain a culture that fosters creativity and innovation?
Well, it's a couple things, really. I think that, first off, it's who we hire. So the company has this idea that if you hire people that aren't just good at their area of expertise, but also have other interests, so I think they like to say intellectually curious, so engineers who also play jazz, or a data scientist who also does beekeeping. I, on the side, am into art and so socially active projects. So by hiring this diverse group of people, you bring them all together, you bring in a bunch of different perspectives. So it's the people we hire, and then it's also the way that we work. One of our major values is called knitting. Not like knitting like this, but it really means bringing together different groups of people on teams to solve problems. So you take all these people from different backgrounds, you put them on a team, you give them a problem to solve, and the results are generally better than you'd get if you were to just have the same like-minded people, like a bunch of engineers or a bunch of MBAs all trying to solve a problem. You put them in a room with a bunch of other people, and the results are often better.
And this is just common practice.
This is just how the company runs, yeah.
Excellent. Well, so you mentioned, kind of the unique kinds of people that are hired and how that's an imperative for Pinterest. How did you qualify? What makes you different, and how do you stay fresh and inspired too?
Well, it's a great question. I don't actually know how I qualified. I'm surprised they hired me. But I have a feeling it had to do with, in addition to like my area of expertise is design, I've got 20 years experience, I've managed design teams. But I also, on the side, have this knack for launching my own projects. So, for example, I'll find something I'm interested in cause, homelessness. Recently, it was more about texting while driving. And I'll notice a problem and I'll think about a solution to it. And then instead of just having the idea, I go figure out how to do something about it. And for this one project, it's called twit spotting, texting while in traffic. I knocked on a bunch of doors of other like-minded organizations to try to get them on board with my idea, and didn't get very far. So basically, I just made the project happen. I went and I took the photos myself, I put up a website myself, I bought billboards myself, and the state of California spent something like $8 million in 2014 to raise awareness about distracted driving. I spent not nearly that much and got more attention on the topic with my campaign.
Yeah, really,
so,
really.
I think it's that ability to take an idea not just from like inspiration to idea, but from idea to execution. And just do it on your own if you don't know how to get it done. So I keep trying. I fail at a lot of things, but I keep trying.
Really, really cool. Pinterest has a lot of advantages, right? Relative youth, its origin. There's a strong foundation for that creative culture that other companies simply don't have. For someone who is perhaps working in a more conventional organization, more conservative organization, what can they do right away to grease the wheels for creativity, innovation?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, every organization is a little bit different. One thing that I think is helpful is sort of self-empowerment. Meaning, if you sit around and wait for permission for things, you're probably never going to get it. And I often hear a lot of people saying things like, oh, we should do that, or someone should do that. And if you just switch that out with, like, I'm going to do that, and like take it upon yourself. It's your responsibility to make that happen. That shift in your mindset, even if you fail, even if you don't go very far and you just run up against a bunch of barriers while you're trying to get it done, it shifts the perception of those around you, and other people start behaving the same way. And the more people take it upon themselves to solve problems, the more the culture will shift in the right direction.
Interesting. So you've actually got people who could potentially be modeling sort of that behavior, and that's how you affect it.
Yeah,
affect the change.
I used to teach design, and you'd always have a couple front runners in the class who, because of they were going so much above and beyond expectations, it forced everyone, all the other students, to sort of try to keep up. And I think you can model that same behavior in a corporate environment where if there are people that are just doing it, just behaving a certain way, others will start to follow because they're sort of leading the pack.
What an interesting insight. I would think a company, anybody watching could go ahead and find somebody like that and use them as a seed almost, you know.
I hope so. Don't blame me though. Don't blame me when things go wrong. You can't be the big 25-person team things. It needs to be like the small, like get a couple people together, get something done without a whole lot of resources and pissing a lot of people off. But it's that type of behavior that I think over time can shift culture.
I love it. Okay, same question really, or same situation. You have a traditional sort of conservative organization where, you know, it's sort of a Jack Welch era kind of model. How do you build a structure, process, system that will support innovation and creativity in that kind of environment? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk and thought on this historically, but I'd be curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I'm not sure that there's any one model that's going to work. I probably can't point out like this is what you should do and expect it to work in different people's organizations. I think there's probably three things that are helpful. First is obviously buy-in from senior leadership, which sometimes requires educating senior leadership. If the leadership's not built in, or like they don't understand the problem, or they don't believe that this is a necessity in a company, it's kind of hard to go very far with it.
Right.
And sometimes that just means bringing them to a conference or exposing them to ideas that they might not be exposed to in their current, you know, perhaps tunnel vision path of leadership. So buy-in from senior leadership, which often includes educating senior leadership, I think is probably step one. Step two, and a lot of people talk about this, but it's the, you know, the risk-taking culture, being able to fail. And, you know, people always say you should celebrate your failures. You can celebrate them, but I think, God, what's the guy's name from Pixar? Greg from Pixar?
Brando.
Yes, told the story about one of his failures and how everyone thought he was going to get fired, and basically he didn't get fired. And that signaled to the rest of the company that it's okay to take risks and fail. So I do think you need, instead of just lip service of saying, oh, it's okay, we move fast and we break things, or it's okay, we celebrate failure, is the actual behavior that from managers or from leadership, that like when people fail, they're not, there's no, you know, retribution on that, or it's encouraged. Like the risk-taking culture, I think, is difficult to build, and there's a lot of signals that will trigger that behavior in people. But part of it is like seeing someone very senior fail and have them maybe not be rewarded, but definitely not punished for it.
And what was the third one?
What was the third one? I did. Third one.
Educate your leaderships.
Yeah.
Work on that failure culture, actually bringing that to life versus just talking about it.
Yeah, and the third, and I sort of already touched upon this because I think Pinterest does this really well, and I think I saw a presentation that also mentioned it. It's mix up your teams. You get too many like-minded people together, and it seems all great because everyone's agreeing. And if you have a room of people that are agreeing, then something's not right. So bringing together folks of a different background, mixing teams up when you get into that initial problem-solving stage, will generate probably better results over time if you get the right people in the room. So
basically, borrowing from Pinterest to start knitting. Essentially.
Exactly. We're not the first to do it, but it is a part of the company culture, and empowering teams to like cross-pollinate and bring together different backgrounds when you're tackling a problem is, I think, super important.
I think that's a big theme I hear a lot of. You know, definitely in the creative area today is really trying to make sure that we're injecting totally different perspectives into our situations, to get people to think differently. So
for sure, yeah.
Big important tool. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And that concludes this episode of Forward Focus. If you'd like to learn more about FEI, the Front End of Innovation Conference, please visit us online at frontendofinnovation.com. Until next time, I'm Mark Dresner. Thanks for tuning in.